Now, we want to give credit where credit is due, and the last few days I've been quite astonished to get quite a lot of criticism for questioning some of the things that have been said by Alex Belfield. Now, the only reason I do this is because Alex and I have had words, and I feel I got a story to tell here. Alex lampooned me for my accent, and I think that's cheap. But the important thing is that he was kind enough and considerate enough later, or although he'd done this on air, later to ring up and apologise. I consider that quite the right thing to do. It doesn't erase the mistake, but it's the right approach. And I think if you're going to hold court by lampooning other people, then yes, you should be big enough to put your hand up and say you went too far. But this is the point. I think Alex Belfield is a valuable part of this YouTube thing. He raises issues. His criticism is worthwhile, even if sometimes it's a little caustic or incautious. Even if that is the case, I enjoy the sort of things that he says, and today is no exception. Today he makes a really interesting point about the New Year's honours and the absurdity of some of the recipients, and particularly he singles out a lady called Harries, who's on the she's part of that board of people who've been offering the government medical advice. Now he cites an instance where she misquoted figures. She quoted February's figures when she should have been quoting figures in the autumn or early winter. Quite a remarkable error. But her errors are much bigger than that. Her errors go back really to the beginning of the pandemic, and it's just a consistent thread of error. And yet for this, she's been given one of the highest honours in the land. And I don't understand this when many nurses and doctors have worked tirelessly and have not been recognised. Yes, there are a smattering of nurses in the New Year's honours, but maybe that figure should be higher, and people who are making really quite arrogant and smug comments in public and giving us advice which maybe is not sound, maybe these are not the people who should be honoured. And we have to ask, what is the honour for? Is the honour simply for standing up and being pilloried by people like Alex? Or is the honour for making a genuine contribution to our life in this country? Harries in 2020 is sort of on record for questioning the efficiency, the value of testing. She says she couldn't see any causal link between testing and delaying or controlling the virus. Of course there isn't a causal link at that point because we don't have enough information. This is almost absurd to make that statement. The reason we test and the reason we want to encourage testing is prudence. And anybody in the medical profession should be a fan of prudence. And to mouth off against testing, I think was imprudent, impolitic, and foolish. She also went on. She said that we were an international exemplar of preparedness, and she was talking about our stocks of PPE, and yet we know that these were not sufficient or not used. We know that there was PPE bought from other countries, from Turkey, for example, which simply languished in a shed. We know this, and yet she talked about our international preparedness. I don't think it's the place of a medical advisor to make these grand political statements. It might be the place of somebody like our Prime Minister to make these statements on the basis of the advice. But she seems to have moved from offering advice to making political statements in her own right, as indeed she was accused of doing so just before Christmas, when it was her advice to decrease social contact, to stop partying. I happen to think that she was probably right, but at the same time, various MPs pilloried her. Mark Harper, who had been a chief whip, I think, said that she's only speaking for herself. She's only speaking for herself, and yet she gets this high honour in the New Year's honours list. I don't understand the link. And I really salute Alex for raising this issue. So, has the New Year's Honours descended into a booby prize for putting one's head above the parapet and taking the flak? A recognition of one's spirit to be attacked, or a recognition of worth. It's not just enough to be in the firing line of the public, and to be the target of public approbation. I think the honours should be worth more than that, and I think we should be getting to a point where that honours list should be reflecting the to a much greater degree the huge numbers of ordinary people who are committing their lives and their service to our country, and who are not taking this sort of arrogant approach to giving advice. I think this needs to stop, and I think we need to consider what is the role of people who are giving advice in public life, and how this should be done. I think also we need to consider what is what we should expect of our politicians and our leaders. All of this is a valid debate that has been highlighted by the COVID crisis. Anyway, please do follow my channel and do ring the bell, and praise what is praiseworthy in other people's sites, and question what you think is not. But don't be too partisan. Have fun.